Boston College gets to 6 wins, and they do it in dominating fashion.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black, the editor and publisher of Eagle Insider. Thank you all for joining. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get yourself started. Boston College, they go out and they kick the pants off of the UNC Tar Heels 41-21. The game wasn't even close. They won by 20, but it was a lot bigger than that. And to do our Monday game recap and analyze everything that happened, of course, we're going to have on Mitchell Wolf of Eagle Insider. Mitch, how's it going?
Could be doing better as the Mitchell Wolf nuclear arsenal megalodon lock of the space-time continuum that is not actually gambling advice for legal reasons is officially 0-1 after one of the worst beats you'll ever see, thanks to 2 garbage time touchdowns in the last 2 minutes of this game.
Yeah, I was gonna say you could thank the second and third team BC defense in O'Brien not punting on the 6-yard line.
Pele Foa, Juan Zabal,
Yep.
Khalil Ali. It's on you.
Well, we're not here to talk about bad beats because we'd be here all day if you wanted to hear my history. But we're here to talk about a big win. BC gets their 6th win of the season, 41-21. It was 41-7 with 5 minutes left. UNC scores 2 garbage touchdowns. But this was a game we should probably start off with the group that deserves the high praise, the roses for this game, which is the BC defense, who held Omarion Hampton to 11 rushes for 53 yards. Mitch, you were, talking about how great this Hampton is, and I'm sure he is, but what was it about BC that just slowed him down, and what kind of game plan did they scheme to really take him out of this game?
It honestly wasn't that much different than a lot of the other games they've played. Like I said with Hampton, he's not like a Bashful Tootin where he has that explosive speed athleticism that's going to allow him to break those big runs. He is more of a kind of wear you down, and if you make a mistake late in the game, then he can burn you for a long run. But the big thing in this game is that BC's offense, did such a good job of just extending drives, keeping time of possession, that the UNC offense was just never on the field. And by the time, even they're about to get the ball back, and then they get a kick return for a touchdown, and they get points, but the offense is still on the sideline. So, looking at the time of possession, BC out-possessed North Carolina 2-1, and probably closer to 3-1 if you take out those last 2 garbage time drives, because those were good drives, but again, it was mostly against BC's backups, and the game was over by that point. In terms of schematic-wise, I think you just see everybody just really buying into, run defense as a group project is what I like to say. And you can't have a slacker on like you have on some of those group projects when you're in school. Everybody's got to really contribute. And it's great to have a guy like Donovan Ezeiruaku that can be your star, but everybody's got to be executing their assignments. And they're all doing that. They were all super bought in. And, watching this game, BC's defense especially was just so much more physical, wanting to engage, wanting to dominate, and they were just focused on their assignments. And UNC was absolutely not. They were getting pushed around. They weren't making contested catches. They committed a lot of penalties that put them in bad situations. And then, so because UNC couldn't possess the ball and they weren't scoring, you're getting to halftime. It's, 24-7 at half or something like that. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you're down by 3 scores. And it's you can run the ball, but you got to start scoring quickly. And again, Omarion Hampton's a good receiver, but he's not going to have all these huge plays. And so you basically eliminated him from the game plan just by the offense succeeding. And as Bill O'Brien's playing complementary football in all 3 phases.
And it was some of the explosive plays too that really caused a lot of problems for UNC. And that was, we talked about the value of sacks. They had 7 sacks in this game. Mm-hmm. And I think it was 3 or 4 years ago since they've had that many in the game.
Most in the game since 2022 against Syracuse, actually.
Okay.
And that was also 7 sacks. If you want to go back to the last time they had more than 7 sacks, 2016 Quick Lane Bowl against Maryland.
Okay. There we go. Well, there were tons of sacks. You had Lewis was throwing guys from all over the place. We had sacks from KP Price, Carter Davis, of course,
Ryan
Donovan
Turner.
Ezra. Ryan Turner, sorry. Donovan Ezeiruaku was all over the place.
Hutchins, and like even
Joe
yeah,
Marinaro.
Owen Stoudemire had one, and Neto Akpala should have had one, but Chris Will threw it away for a pick six. So I kind of felt bad for Akpala because it's like, oh, he's finally gonna get a sack. It hasn't got one
Yep.
since one. He's got Criswell wrapped up, and Criswell just throws it to nobody, and Turner's just lurking there because he's playing zone on the backside. It's like, okay, I guess I'll just take this back and house it.
I can't believe he didn't drop that because it was like there was no one. I mean, I don't know what Jacoby Criswell was thinking when he threw that pass. Like
I think he thought he had the arm strength to get it to the sideline and just absolutely did not. But yeah, I mean those blitzes were huge. BC blitzed on I think 48.7% of their dropbacks. So basically half of UNC's dropbacks they were blitzing. And again, if you think about the dropbacks towards the end of the game where it was garbage time and it was obvious passing situation, BC wasn't blitzing. So if you like eliminate those last few drives, BC's blitzing on over 50%. They're sending 5 guys on nearly every drop back. And a lot of times they're getting home. Like BC had a very high pressure rate in this game. I'm going to try to pull it up here. It was their highest of the season. I want to say it was in the high 30s, maybe low 40s% of pressure rate, which is very high for them. And it's interesting because BC has had a lot of issues this year with converting those blitz pressures or those blitz looks into pressures. That was something they were really struggling with in this game. It finally worked. So their pressure rate was 43.6%. So that was working. Donovan Ezeiruaku, obviously had a great game. They put him over the right tackle, which was surprising me because I knew the right tackle was going to have some issues. So I thought they would try to get the other defensive ends, give them an easier matchup, but they just had Ezeiruaku go over there and just kick his butt the whole game.
Any idea what his Pro Football Focus grade was for that tackle?
It's like his pass blocking was like 72, which I'm bewildered by. He gave up 2 sacks. I think he had at least one more penalty. I saw that and I was like, okay, like I get he had like a bunch of drops. So they had 40 pass blocking snaps. So I get it. His pass blocking grade was 71.8%. Gave up 4 pressures, 2 sacks, and had 2 penalties. So it's just, and one of them was an illegal hands to the face on Donovan Ezeiruaku that if he didn't do that, it probably would have been a sack too. So don't really understand the grades there. I'm going to be honest.
And so it wasn't just the sacks. There was 3 turnovers. One of them kind of really didn't count. The Carter Davis.
Yeah, the Hail Mary didn't. Honestly, I was terrified that Davis and Price would like knock the ball up in the air and UNC would catch it off the tip. I was like, don't even try to catch. Just knock it out the back of the end zone. Don't even try to catch it. But that was nice. And I mean, again, the emergence of the folk hero, Joey Mottsticks, which is my nickname for Joe Marinaro, which I'm really hoping that catches on. But, I was really worried about him getting a lot of snaps, before when it became apparent he was going to play in the SMU game. And he's been great. Again, he had that one missed tackle on the tight end, which turned into a big play. But other than that, perfect game, pretty much was flying around a run defense. Obviously, great interception, had the sack. I totally agree with you. He's got to be ACC linebacker of the week. Just a lot of really great plays. And the interception was so cool when you watch the film, and you probably can see this on the broadcast too. But like, as soon as he like gets to the sideline and is out of bounds, the entire bench, because it's to BC's bench, they just all like flood down to him to just mob him, which kind of similar thing happened with CJ Clinkscales last year against Syracuse. But it was just so cool to see like them all like just freaking out about Marinaro getting that pick, which was, BC's had a ton of interceptions this year, which has been huge for them. I feel like that might be like the best play, like where the guy like making the play on the ball of the interceptions BC's had this year. Because, you think about the Ryan Turner one, an easy one. Think about the one Max Tucker had week 1 against Florida State, easy catch. Like this one was incredible.
Yeah, it was such a cool play. And I said it on the post-game recap, like, if you don't know Joe Marinaro's story, it's pretty cool. Like, this is a guy that was a walk-on a couple years ago. He's just a special teamer, right? Coming into this season, he gets out there and he's, as Bill keeps saying, like, he's a BC guy. He's maximizing every moment that he gets out there. Is he the most athletic guy out there? Absolutely not. I mean, is he the fastest guy? No, but he's smart. He's tough. He's making big plays, and that's all you can ask for him. And so when you do that, like against a guy like Omarion Hampton, like he knew where to be. He did his plays. I mean, think it was against Hampton. He had a big stick right at the line of scrimmage. I forget who that play was against, but
yeah, he had a few, like him and Crouch had some of those. The other thing to mention, and O'Brien brought this up in the post game press conference. He gets that pick. They throw the touchdown to Reed Harris on the kickoff. Marinaro makes the tackle on the kickoff return. So that's he completes completes the process there. And again, like you mentioned this too, but for BC to do this against Hampton without Cam Arnold, without Cam Horsley, Cam Horsley's been having a dominant season in run defense, for them to do that with Owen Stoudemire, Quan Williams, George Rooks. We're seeing a good bit of Ty Clemens more in pass rush situations, and he's playing pretty well. You're just seeing guys like step up and really buy into that next man up mentality where like there isn't like this huge drop off, and because so many of these guys are going to be back next year is really encouraging. Think about the depth of this team especially on the defensive side of the ball, because Ashley McShane has taken some lumps here and there. He's had some tough moments in the last 2 weeks. Pretty good game here. You look at a guy like Ryan Turner, who struggled to start the season, had a really bad game against Michigan State, hadn't really played since then, gets elevated because of injuries and has a pick six, has a sack, had another great play where he broke on the ball and broke up a pass. I think it was on third down. So yeah, and even like Omar Thornton, true freshman, getting elevated, playing really well. So then you've got like this great trio of young safeties of KP Price, who I still think is awesome. And then KP Price, you just feel like he's just always there in the right place, which is great. And then Carter Davis, he's kind of taken a bit of a backseat recently, but he's a playmaker. And again, Thornton, like that trio of young safeties is going to be huge for this team moving forward.
I love the development of, and it feels like, Bill keeps talking about he's rewarding guys that show up in practice and play hard at practice.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems clear because you see guys like Jordan McDonald was a big one. He keeps mentioning, right? Like he's a guy that practice that keeps playing. He doesn't, I don't know if Halfley did this as much. It felt like with Jeff, maybe it was more like he had his guys and he would stick through them through tough and, thin and thick and thin a little bit. Like if there's a guy that he liked, he's struggling, maybe he's not doing great at practice, he's going to keep pushing through it.
John Pupil.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. But, like it feels like Bill is like really working on the development piece and
which, I think both approaches are fair.
Right.
And I respect, and Halfley has his philosophies about certain things, and I don't necessarily think they're wrong or bad, but I mean, it's clear, what Bill is doing this year with the results are just a lot better. And maybe we'll do an episode on this later, but I don't really care to discuss the hypotheticals of if certain players were starting earlier in the season, would the records be different? But maybe we can save that for when the regular season is over.
Yeah, I know exactly. I think you guys can all discuss who we think would we be talking about there, but that'll be another episode when we get to the quiet months again. But we're going to talk a little bit in a moment. I want to talk about the offense. Speaking of that, we'll talk about Grayson James, Kai Robichaux, the play of the offensive line, and a whole lot more in just a moment. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You're thinking about this week's game. There's a bunch of Thanksgiving games. Maybe you want to have your turkey and a couple over-unders. You can do that with FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Locked on Boston College, AJ Black here. And I'm joined by Mitchell Wolf of Eagle Insider. If you wanted to check out my post-game show, up in the press box on Saturday, you need to go to the Locked On Boston Postcast. Just look it up. You'll find it. Just put Boston College versus UNC. There's not a ton of other podcasts out there. You'll find it. Make sure you hit subscribe and like that wherever you get your podcasts. And it's on our regular feed for podcasts, and it's on YouTube on that page. So it's a little confusing, but hopefully you can find that. Now, the offense put up 34 points in this game. And Grayson James is the talk of the town right now. There's certain writers that are doing victory laps as they discuss that he's going to be, the quarterback on the team. And this new revelation seems to make them think they're right. Could be. he's playing very well right now, and I'm happy to eat a little humble pie and say that right now Grayson James is definitely the right quarterback. But what do we see out of Grayson in this game?
I mean, I think this was the best game of his certainly BC career. You could probably argue, considering the opponent, the best game of his college career. Um, he looked exceptionally in control of the offense. And again, I think that the point that Grayson James was a better fit for Bill O'Brien's offense, that's probably true, and we can probably say we were wrong there. And I think from our standpoint, our thought was that Thomas Castellanos theoretically would elevate the ceiling of the offense to a point where it would be something special because of his ability to run combined with his development as a passer. The problem was that development as a passer came at the cost of his running ability, which then as his passing ability then kind of regressed to where it was last year, then it became untenable for him to remain the starter. So, we were wrong there, and Grayson James is playing really well. And again, we'll talk about this in the offseason, so we're just going to focus on this game. Again, Grayson James did a great job of operating the offense, made some really great throws that, Hay hasn't really consistently put on film. Obviously, the deep ball to Reed Harris, little underthrown, but he had defensive backs beat two of them, which was great. So that's a good ball. The other touchdown to Reed Harris, put it right where you want it for a 6'5" receiver. Have him elevate, go up and moss the defender. Had some nice throws to Lewis Bond, get him some run after the catch abilities, which has been missing from this offense for most of the year. They had a successful screen pass. I can't believe I forgot that, which is the first time this year has happened, and it was incredible. Almost got that. You got 2 field goals made. It was a crazy game. But again, and this is where James is really elevating this offense, is his ability to work through pressure. And I will say his pocket management and his pocket poise has really developed in the games that he's played this year. Earlier on he was panicking, wasn't throwing, kind of running himself into sacks. Now he's kind of he's doing a better job of avoiding the pressure, getting outside the pocket. He would use his legs sometimes. Other times there was a crazy play where he like pump faked as he was in the air and then made the smart decision to bring it down, and he scrambled up for a few yards. But we're seeing that ability to get outside of the pocket, buy some time, and then find a receiver downfield, which again, that's what we thought we would get with Castellanos, and now we're seeing with James, which that's helping the offense stay on the field. We saw BC kind of go with that strategy of let's keep getting into third manageables, then we go for it on fourth. And again, the run game is a huge part of that, because if you look at how pretty much every BC series started, run up the middle, get somewhere between 4 to 6 yards. And 4 to 4 yards on first down is not like quote unquote a successful play. Like if you look at BC's success rate in this game and their EPA per play, it's pretty bad, and actually pretty bad in the run game, which is kind of surprising. But if you just watch the game, you're like, okay, like they're getting to 2nd and 6, and then 2nd and 6, if you run it again, you get to 3rd and 2. If you pass it, get the first down, or you get another 3rd and 2. And we saw, I think it was on the first drive, they're facing like 3rd and 9. They throw the Reed Harris, get to 4th and 2. Quick throw to the flat, Jeremiah Franklin, first down. Awesome. And also one touchdown gets taken off the board by penalty for offensive pass interference on the perfect wheel route to Kai Robichaux. Watching that play, I can see why it's called, but I also see 2 defenders aggressively engaging Reed Harris. So I feel like that shouldn't have been called, but it's neither here nor there. But yeah, I mean, again, everybody played well. The offensive line kept James protected, only 1 sack, which was on 4th down. So he's kind of, holding on the ball, really trying to make a play there. Had a few pressures, but again, the pressure rate was relatively low compared to their rest of their season. A lot of times James is hanging in the pocket on some of these plays. It's not as much quick passing as maybe we would want, but he's getting better with every game. And he said that in the post-game press conference, there's no substitute for experience and reps. And, he's definitely, you can see it. He's growing as a player. He's getting better every week. And if that trajectory keeps going, then that would be pretty awesome for BC.
Yeah, I want to say too, like some of the things like you mentioned a little bit, but like his ability to check down, I think is impressive. Like something I didn't think we saw very much with Tommy. I didn't think Tommy was always going deep, and and again, this goes back to our discussion of James versus Castellanos, but it seems like he can see the guys and get it out. And that's why Bond had 9 catches, 10 catches, something like that. He would check down to him constantly, and it was working. And I thought it was just really good execution. And you mentioned over and over again on in text to me or Twitter that like the play calling isn't different, it's just executed at a higher level.
They're running mesh wheel more than ever before. Like
Yep.
it is mesh wheel, mesh rail.
Right.
Like they ran that. It might have run that 10 times in this game. Honestly, they were running it so much, and people were kind of getting on Will Lawing early in the season, me included, for just running mesh rail into the ground, but still working. Teams can't stop it. Like, I mean, they had a
Yep.
Bond a few times where if the protection just holds up, you just wait for Bond to come over from the other side on the drag route, and that's free money right there. Again, the one thing I will say with James is this is again for second week in a row where third game in a row where he's had like a third or fourth down where he's trying to throw over the middle on a short route and he just short arms it.
Yep.
And it's just like, why is this happening? Like this is a layup throw. Like he's making throws consistently throughout the game that are much more difficult. And you're just always missing this one. And I'm not sure what it is, but we got to
It's like the one where Trayshawn Ward were like off his foot. Or was it Ward? I think they hit him on the foot.
No, it was Tomlin this game, I think.
That's
He's
right.
Short armed it to Tomlin like right over the middle. Last week it was I think last week it was Bond against SMU, and then he had again like Ward last week. Ward dropped the pass, but James also could have had a better throw. And then it happened with Bond again against Syracuse, where they kind of ran that leak play but they ran it to Bond instead of one of the tight ends, and he was wide open, and James just kind of short armed it to him. So got to get that fixed. But other than that, my other nitpick complaint about James, when they'll run those like kind of read options, and he's going to the edge, and he tries to cut back, and they're not buying it. You just go to the edge, just run, just sprint to the edge. Don't try to cut it back. Like, yep. I'm sorry, but you're not Tommy. Like,
yep,
you're not faking those dudes out. So just run to the edge and see how many you can get. Because with him, like, you're a big dude. Like, put an arm in their chest. Like, yeah, yep. Like these are defensive backs. Like, you're probably not juking that free safety, but you might be able to put them in the dirt.
Yeah, and I think the thing to think about too with the things that we're mentioning is it seems like it's all fixable stuff. Like
short arm, for sure.
Like that's all like minor stuff that you can fix. It's not like poise and like being able to read like pressure.
And that's
harder.
And that's what's improving, and that is really encouraging.
Yeah.
Because again, like you go back to the West Kentucky game, like that's a kind of a tough defense to have your first start against because they are so blitz heavy. They do all these funky coverage things. So that's kind of tough. Syracuse is a little easier. SMU, obviously, a really good defense. They're a little more simplistic, but they're pretty good, obviously. And then UNC, again, they weren't blitzing a ton, just not getting a lot of pressure. So he had a lot of times he just had all day in the pocket. Like on that first drive, he had that out route to Lewis Bond. Oh, beautiful! That's beautiful play call, beautiful play design, great execution. So really, and we didn't talk about the running backs much. It wasn't like a very flashy day for them, but again, 4 to 6 yards on every first down, that's efficient winning football.
Yep. All right, in our final segment, Mitch and I are going to wrap up, talk about any other last thoughts about this game, and maybe just a quick preview of the Pitt Panthers in our season finale. We'll get into that in just a little bit. Now, I love going to sporting events. I love going to theater, concerts. Get me out of my house. I love it. And I use Game Time to get myself my tickets because they're the people I trust. And now Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite team play live even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They have curated deals to make it easy to find the best price on great seats. When I want to go to a BC game, I want to make sure that I am spending the least amount of money possible because I'm a frugal person. And Game Time, they got me covered. With all-in prices there, you can toggle in to show you what the total is up front. That means no surprises, no lump in your throat when you hit that checkout button. It's none of that on Game Time. So make sure you check them out by downloading the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black here, wrapping things up on our final discussion about the UNC game with Mitchell Wolf of Eagle Insider. But when you're done with this episode, if you want a second listen, check out Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin. It's on YouTube, wherever you get podcasts. You can get everything on college football on that. Check that out. Now, Mitch, were there any other things that stood out to you in this game?
2 field goals, baby.
Yeah.
I mean, all things considered, a bit of a mixed bag day for Liam Connor, considering he's doing all of the kicking, which that's kind of a problem, and that's probably what's going to happen when you have a guy doing all three of those, because it's three very different things. I mean, kickoffs and field goals, I guess, are pretty similar, but three different duties, and he's pulling all of them. He had a rough punt. It ultimately didn't matter. It was only BC's only punt of the day, but nailed a 49-yarder, hit another short field goal, which honestly the short one looked worse, I thought, but and he had the kickoff out of bounds. So mixed day, obviously. Give up the kickoff return for a touchdown. It's tough. Not good, considering that was really BC's only good thing that was happening on special teams for the entire year. So don't love that, but ultimately it didn't matter. Kind of good to get it out of the way in a game that didn't matter. I mentioned on the preview, I was like, I feel like a special teams gaff could flip this game, and the gaff happened, but it ultimately didn't matter. But yeah, I mean, other than that play and the kickoff out of bounds and punt, pretty good coverage, pretty deep. We saw Jaden McGowan get the opening kickoff and have a nice play, and I was like, oh, finally they're using this guy right. And then they get two touches to Jonathan Montague, and both of them are great.
Yep.
The reverse touch, and I think that was more my problem with how they're using Montague. Is like you're asking him to do like a pretty tough thing as a receiver, like as a freshman who's recently converted to the position. Like get him these like scheme touches where he can be running in space instead of like making him a true X, where you're like, all right, go up and like try to moss this defender who's actually been playing the position for years. Like, no, just like get a reverse, get a jet sweep, get a screen. Like that's the good stuff that they should be doing, and they seem to kind of finally figure that out. Trying to think of other. Oh, I mean, again, I'll just say this: like it cannot be overstated how much like the focus on discipline and focus on this team has made them so much better in, I would say, penalties and tackling. Penalties really were a big thing in this game. You look at BC's, they have that the pass interference, offensive pass interference, kind of questionable. The offensive face mask on Lewis Bond, which I was a bit questioned. I think they even questioned that in the broadcast a bit. And other than that, like I think BC had one holding penalty, so really only one penalty where it's like, okay, like we got to do better there. But UNC, tons of pre-snap penalties. I can't really think if they had
like two or three personal fouls.
Yeah, they had some illegal hands to the face, like that kind of stuff. Where that's the stuff BC was doing all season last year, and that really came back to bite the Tar Heels in this game. And I think it was just indicative of how BC was just the team that was ready to go to war here, and UNC was like, all right, we made bowl eligibility. Max is coming back for another year. We got NC State next week. Yeah, it's cold in Boston. I don't really feel like playing real football today. So again, I think this is Bill O'Brien has really installed a different culture here, and I think we should see that pay off in the final regular season game coming up this weekend, and ideally the bowl game as well.
I don't know if you got a chance to watch on Twitter. BC football, I think it was yesterday afternoon, released that video with all of Bill's speeches in it, like clips of it, and every single one of him was, "We're going to dominate them up front. We're going to pound them. We're going."
For what it's worth, they also did something similar with the Syracuse game, where they had him saying like, "Dominate the line of scrimmage, or dominate the trenches, dominate." And I'm like, I was like, so he just says this every game? Like that's just the message every week, which I mean, he's right. That is important. But then at some point it's like next week it's like, all right, we get it. Dominate line of scrimmage. Yeah, we know. Come on. Like, we know how to do that. But they are doing that. And and it's good to see. I mean, this team is clicking at the right time. Like, again, the special teams are still an issue, but this team has momentum. You got won 2 out of your last 3. You arguably had a pretty good chance to win the one you lost, and can finish the season on a real high note. I think going into the season, I was on like the 5-7, 6-6 train, and getting a 7-5 is huge. Going into the season, we were like, oh, like there's a lot of toss-up games here. Looking at the back end of the season, we thought, okay, UNC could be had. I thought Pitt would be a lot worse. They're kind of regressing to that point now, and injuries are playing a role. But that looks like a very winnable game now. And if you can finish the season with winning 3 of your last 4, go to a bowl game with momentum. I think that's huge for this program. You get those extra practices
and don't play Army.
and I will say this: if you're going to play a Surface Academy, better to have a month to prepare for it. So I will say that.
Well, again, O'Brien with discipline, right? Like
exactly.
He's a guy that's going to get them ready if there's a team like that.
Oh, I mean, he'll have Ernie Adams in the building breaking down like 1950s Wishbone film, like he'll be scheming that up, like that's Christmas for Ernie Adams.
Yeah. So one last thought. I didn't talk about it on the post game. Some folks, it was cold, it was miserable for anyone who was in attendance. I was in the press box, so I can't really relate to that.
Throwing stones from your ivory tower.
Yeah, exactly. But for folks that didn't make it to the game who were wondering, Thomas Castellanos has been like eliminated from everything. And I was a reason I brought that up was because if you're listening to this, you know Boston College. They take forever to do anything. Like I could see them seeing this is a pain in the neck. I'm not going to do it. But they had like the intro earn it video that they do before the guys come out. And it's actually kind of comical that they like superimposed a photo like this, like completely out of whatever photo shoot. It was not part of that of Grayson James. It's like him walking onto the field or something while everyone else is in front of like the spitting fires. It looked completely out of place, but it wasn't Castellanos, so they got that out of there. But he's been wiped clean, so that's a new thing. And I'll have more to talk about that tomorrow, where I'll probably talk a little bit about Bill O'Brien's comments that with was it Leslie Vassar?
Andrea Kramer.
Andrea Kramer about Thomas Castellanos, and get a little bit into that. We'll talk about what some of that means. Mitch, where can people find your work?
You can find me at Mitchell D. Wolf, WOLFE on Twitter. I'll have the game rewatches up. Finally got the film. Took a little while to download this week, and I was traveling as well, but we'll have those up this week. And then on to previewing Pitt. And again, like earlier season, I was worried. I was like, man, Pitt's kind of, they're a lot better than I thought. They're figuring stuff out with, some kind of hodgepodge pieces, but it seems the rubber's meeting the road for them. I'm going to keep using the aphorisms here. The wheels are falling off the wagon real quick. So I feel like BC should have a good chance in this one, and we'll be breaking that all down later this week. While you're eating your Thanksgiving meal, you can check out our work.
It looks like BC will get their chance for a revenge against Nate Yarnell on Saturday, as Eli Hoffstein is out for a broken leg.
The foreseeable future. It looked rough.
Air cast. So that's bad. But
sucks.
We'll talk more about that later this week. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247 and check out all my work over at Eagle Insider. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button before you leave. We're Boston College Talk 5 days a week. Talk a lot about BC football. I'll also talk more about BC basketball. It'll be a little bit more behind, but I know there's not as big of a need to talk about basketball on the show, but they're currently, as I'm recording this, kicking the snot out of Old Dominion, so that's positive. We'll talk more about that later too. Thank you all for
Emmett Moorhead.
I know it's the Emmett Moorhead revenge game. All right. For Mitch, this is AJ. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you all again soon for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.